Hello, everyone. So excited. Happy New Year. Auntie Sage is here. She's back live and in color. As good as we can get. All right. And Miss Landa is here. I'm going to go ahead and do our introduction and then I'll add her. So, welcome back. It is Skoden Talks with the Homies with your Auntie Sage Chanel. Welcome. Everyone come in. I'm so glad you can join us for another episode. Here we go with our introduction. IP3 is an organization that provides nonviolent direction action training, campaign strategy, and community organizing tools to support Indigenous communities taking action in defense of their homelands. For more information about IP3, or to send community training requests, you can visit the website ip3action.org or contact info@ip3action.org. So I'm so excited. Joining us today, Miss Landa Lakes. I'm so excited to introduce y'all to her. Landa, I believe I sent you a request. There we go. Hey, sis.
Hi.
Is she in the quad or is she in the water?
Oh my God, in the water. In the water right now.
I saw you said you was eating in the Tahlequah. I was like, dang, girl. She's got a good broom.
Oh my God. You know, when you come to Oklahoma, you just have to remember that you're going to be driving everywhere.
Uber and all that other stuff is not really available, especially here in Little Axe. Girl, no. They're like Little Axe. Nope. I get swiped by all the time. So I had to add a picture, and then the picture actually kind of helps. So, all right. Well, would you like to do an introduction, or you want me to hear a little introduction first?
Oh, yeah, you can go ahead and do a little introduction if you like.
Well, this is Landa Lakes, a.k.a. Miko Thomas. She is a Chickasaw writer, musician, activist, and artist. As drag persona Landa Lakes, she founded the Brush Arbor Gurls, an all-Indigenous drag house, and the International Drag House of Glitter, and is the mother of the West Coast House of Lauren. She founded the Weaving Spirits Two-Spirit Performance Festival and is one of the founders of the Two-Spirit Powwow, now in its 12th year. 12 years?
12 years. Yeah.
Wow. Well, would you like to add anything to that?
No, that's enough. Actually, you know what? It's so funny because I was talking this morning a little bit about this thing that was happening. You know, I'm at my sister's house right now. That's why the lighting is sort of horrid and I look terrible, but please don't judge. You can only do so much with these bulbs. Okay. So I was talking about this interview, and one of them said, and somebody said, I hope you don't stress the musician part because you don't do it enough. And I'm like, oh well, you know, I guess. I'm like, well, if I have a keyboard, I can easily play any kind of hymnal, but and they were like, I haven't seen you pick up a keyboard in years. I'm like, oh my God, I guess I'm gonna have to take that out of my bio.
Girl, keep it. It keeps it interesting.
They're like it's gonna work really well for you if they have an all Christian band.
Girl,
great. Okay, here we go.
I can do oohs and ahs, so I can get my musician on my bio. All right. Well, let's go ahead and jump into some questions. So, are you ready? Get in the hot seat, girl.
Yes.
All right. Would you like to tell us a little bit about your background?
Sure. I grew up in a very small town in Oklahoma. I think the greatest population growth that it's ever had has been somewhere around 350 people. It's a little place called Tupelo. And you know what was really great about growing up, though, in Tupelo was just the fact that, you know, it's very definitely a Chickasaw Choctaw community. So when you're there, there's always like a lot of Native representation, and not only just students, but also in the faculty as well. So when I was growing up, I mean, like there was always Native people always around me, and so having teachers, I think that are Native is actually one of the best things because you definitely have mentors that you can grow with from there.
Awesome. What are the people, places, and things that have influenced you as a person?
Things that have influenced me as a person, I would probably, you know, family is the thing that influences probably me the most, more than anything else. My sister is a very strong, like, Chickasaw woman, so she's went through a lot of hard times and everything, but yet still is able to bounce back and everything else. So I would probably say my strongest influence was my sister. Also, when we were younger, I used to be her tag along. And whatever she said for me to do, I did, you know. So she is a very bossy person.
I can relate. Grandma was mine, and like everybody thought grandma was that sweet grandma, but to me, I was like, are you sure about that? Like, I cook with her. I've been hit with that spoon. Like, how did you get involved in the arts? And are you self-taught, or did you have some kind of training?
Well, you know, that's a very, very interesting and sort of layered sort of question. I would say that probably one of the reasons I think I got involved in things like just enjoying music and everything is from my father. My father used to play the guitar and was like very into music and everything. But as I was growing up, I went to this thing. It was called Explorations in Creativity, or EIC. And it took place over in Anadarko at Riverside Indian School. And what they did there was like they brought all these kids that they called the gifted and talented Native students, and they brought them all to that boarding school, and we had sort of like this camp. And while we were at this camp, we had choices of what we could do. And one of the things that I took was theater, because I thought, oh, theater, I love theater. But my school didn't really have theater, so I wanted to have some kind of experience with theater and everything. And I learned a lot from there. And I think it was from there that I learned about Hane Gigama and all the things that he's done in his life with theater and also just putting Native visibility out into the world and everything. And so I think that's where I really gained a lot of love for the things that Hane Gigama did. And it really had a huge impact, I think, on me and my life. And in the future, I really learned a very valuable lesson, which was that you can create something and it might start off like really, really small, but eventually it'll grow. And knowing that actually is very helpful, because I think that people sometimes jump into things and they think it should start off immediately big, and it's not always the case. Sometimes it has to start very, very small and then grow.
I didn't know you was a Riverside girl. That ties in so many things. And I knew she was going to make an appearance, but yeah, don't mind her. Where are we at? What is your favorite medium, writing, music, or performance?
I think definitely performance. Performance is definitely the thing that I really enjoy. One of the things that I enjoy about performance is that quite often performances can be rather short, but very impactful. Whereas sometimes with writing, well, you know, before you can do like some of the performances that I do, you know, I have to script it out myself anyway. So I guess that's sort of like related to the writing. But I think with writing, it takes just a little bit longer, because when you're writing, you definitely want to have an editor of some sort, because if you don't have good editing, you know, you never want to look bad, and most of all, you don't want to look stupid. And sometimes my grammar can just go off kilter, and I don't want that. I want people to read what I write and be able to go, oh, that sounds great, or that sounds very smart. Not, why did they say you was?
So, knowing that you went to Riverside, a boarding school, did you have a good experience while you were there? Was there any of the horrors that we are now learning about to this day, or was it okay experience?
Well, when I went to Riverside, you know, it was for that summer program. It was like a summer. It was a very special program, so it wasn't like I was going throughout the year. However, I did attend Jones Academy in Hartshorn, Oklahoma, and I did attend down in Ardmore, Carter Seminary, which is a Chickasaw boarding school, and both of those were sort of like my own choices to go to these boarding schools, because I always was trying to like help my family save money, and I thought if I went to these schools, then that would be great. And you know, the Choctaw Nation runs the one in Hartshorn, and the other one, Carter Seminary, is run by the Chickasaw Nation. So it's a completely different experience, I think, from my father's day when he had to go to Sequoia, and my aunt having to go to Chilocco. You know, those Indian boarding schools were very, very different. And I think it's important to note that, you know, in 1907, when Oklahoma became a state, you know, the federal government took over those boarding schools. And so those were completely different from what they were intended to be in the very beginning. Because I think it's complicated in Oklahoma, because a lot of times people will talk about Indian boarding schools without realizing that a lot of these Indian boarding schools were started by our tribes here in Oklahoma. Like a lot of our tribes actually started these boarding schools. My great grandfather went to a boarding school. My grandmother went to a boarding school. My dad went to a boarding school. All these people have always went to boarding schools. But what I will say about it is I think that it does have a breakdown in the family dynamic. I think it really hurts families more than anything else. But at the same time, there's this idea that you're somehow helping or improving your children's lives. And to me, it just set me up perfect to go into the military, really. That's what it did. It was like it set me up. So, oh yeah, I've already done all this. I can go. I can get through basic training. I can make a quarter bounce off my bed. Because here's the thing, in boarding school, you know, one of the things that they really like is if you have like your room extra clean, your sheets extra tight and everything else, then you can get into like the honor room, which means that you're like, extra tidy or whatever. So you get a better room if you're really tidy. So everyone's vying for that. Right? Everybody's vying for that.
She's an honor girl.
Right?
And like me also, like my family was also in the boarding school kind of situation, and that's why I've got 4 tribes. I'm a boarding school grandbaby. But my dad's side, they both met at Shilako. And so that side I also noticed too, like they're not very strong on traditions.
Right.
And so they finally, like once now that they're older and starting to pass on, they finally start to realize, that's important. So I'm not very strong on that side of the family, on like language and traditions, but on my mom's side, she grew up outside of that. And that's where I'm the Shawnee girl. That's what I claim. But yeah, I totally get all of that on that side. And it's definitely a different experience here in Oklahoma, having to grow up through all that. And yeah, it's been crazy. I even tried to go to boarding school, and my mom was like, no, and you cannot date that boy. He's Apache.
Right. Well, one of the things you always have to remember also when you go to boarding school is that when you go, you have to be ready to fight. That's back in my day. That's a given. You have to be able to fight. You can't go into an Indian boarding school and have the least weakness because you will be attacked.
Oh, I was ready. I was like, because me and my cousin were like, you want to go? I'm like, yeah. And then my mom shot me down. Like, first thing, I was like, oh, Lord. I can't go. So do you incorporate your own music and writing into your drag persona?
I do incorporate some a lot of my writing sometimes into some of the things that I do, especially with the Weaving Spirits Festival. Then that's when I can really sort of like be very creative and outside of like just like bar drag. Bar drag is very different from doing Weaving Spirits. When I do performance drag, it's something that you really have to think about, and I want people to leave with a little more knowledge. But at the same time, I don't want to just tell them the whole story. I want them to get the gist of what I'm saying so that they can either identify with it, because we have like a large Native audience. If there's a large Native audience, they can identify it. I recently did this thing with about boarding schools. And for those who know about boarding schools, have attended boarding schools, or even had their parents and grandparents in these boarding schools, then I think that the impact of that is that they recognize it. The Indigenous people recognize it. And for those who are outside of that, they get a chance to sort of taste it, and then they can go and they can find out their own stuff. Because at the same time, I'm always like, I want to educate you, but I don't want to be an educator.
That part. When I speak, you should listen. I'm very that too. I'm just like, I was like, I don't want to be put in that position, but when I'm ready to speak, let's listen. Also, to our viewers, if y'all have any questions while we're doing the interview, go ahead and post them, and we'll get them answered. Any questions for Landa or anything you're thinking about, go ahead and post, and we'll try to get them answered as we go. So, how has your work as an artist influenced your activism work?
Oh, I think that those go hand in hand together. Activism and drag, they go hand in hand because, drag is just a platform. So you can take drag and you can use it as a platform into other things. It's sort of like I always say, like, people that don't necessarily have the greatest ability to sing, they can do drag, and all of a sudden they're singing drag queen, and sensational, right? Sensational. All of a and the same thing I think goes with activism is you can bring your activism into drag, and it just creates another platform and allows you to spread even more information. And even if you're not really into like things like activism and everything else, it's funny. There's Lady Shug. One of the things that she says is our existence is resistance. You know, it demonstrates that we're still here. And I think that's important too, is like when people see an Indigenous person on stage and recognize that it's an Indigenous person, then it means a lot for those Indigenous people who are in the audience that feel like they could never be up there, or that they have to give up something in order to be there.
Have you had any like good or bad feedback from when you're doing your performance arts, like your boarding school? Has it been well received, or has anybody had any like backlash for that?
No, actually, I've had a lot of cheers. I've had a lot of people come to me and share with me some of their stories. You know, it's a part of our history. You know, you know, there's some people that, you know, their parents didn't go to boarding schools, but their grandparents did, or they didn't go to boarding school, nor their grandparents, but some of their family did, and they feel that impact. It grows within us, and it's definitely there. So it's hard to separate Indigenous life away from boarding schools, because there's that vein that just sort of runs through it all. And it's unfortunate. You know, I always say that, you know, all of this is started by the Civilization Act of what was that, 1819? It goes way back, and that's when, for the first time, the government felt like they needed to be a parent to Indigenous people. And ever since then, it's been nothing but problems, right? Nothing but problems.
And if y'all ever get a chance to see the performance she's talking about, is very powerful. I shed some tears. It was moving. I applaud you, sister. That was a very, very well thought out performance, and it's something that I think everyone should at least experience once, because I mean, a lot of people don't understand how harsh the conditions were, and being told you couldn't speak your language or do your traditions or anything like that. I mean, that was a time period that was now showing effects in our language today. Like, we're losing our language more and more just because of our boarding school experiences. And like, even growing up there, I remember my aunties and my grandpas and stuff, they were like, you know, don't speak your language. And I was like, what? And that's what they were taught. And so they were just trying to like teach us. They're like, you know, this is a white man's world. You've got to learn English, and that's got to be your first language. And I was like, what? Like, hearing that, I was just kind of like, oh my gosh. So yeah, if y'all do get a chance to check it out, follow Miss Landa, and definitely get ready. Get some tissues for your tears. Hot Talk says, how big or important is language to you?
Hatakoma, Red Man. Okay, well, let me tell you, I think language is extremely important. And I think that also, just being Southeastern as well, Southeastern tribe, when I do a lot of my performances, I try to pull in that piece of it. I try to pull in my background into whatever I'm doing. So I think language and culture itself is extremely important to me. And it's very hard because, you know, I'm from Oklahoma, but I've lived in California for many, many years. And because I've been away for so long, you know, it's hard to hold on to a language if you don't use it every day. And one of the things that I would have to say is, like, one of the things that has sort of kept me somewhat refreshed is the fact that I pray every morning. Every morning I get up and I pray. I emulate what my grandfather did, my grandpa. Every day he got up in the morning and the first thing he did was pray. And so that's what I do. And I've always done it in Chickasaw. And because of that, I've retained a lot of my Chickasaw language just because I pray every day. And so when I come back home, I'm not lost in the language. So when my aunt talks to me, I don't suddenly go blank and not be able to say something back, because that's one of the hardest things, is like when you know a language and it's stuck in your head, but you can't speak it. That's when it starts to become like a real tragedy. And there's a lot of people that are like that. They can understand it, but they can't really speak it. And so I think that by doing a prayer every day, it has really helped. And I don't know, I guess imbued me with a feeling of connection as well, of still being Chickasaw, even though I'm far away.
Yeah. And with myself, I actually was like around a 12-year-old recently, and he came up to me and he's like, how high can you count? And I was all like, I can count to like 10, maybe 20. Girl, I got to like 4 and I went blank. And I was like, and like, I really have not counted in like years. I have not talked it in so long. And so that was kind of like hurtful. And I was like, oh my gosh. So I'm looking into our classes now because I was like, that really was like a shocker to me. I was like, I used to know how to count like way up there. And now it's like, wow. I was like, you use it or lose it, basically. So it's a very, very crazy. And speaking of Lady Shook is here. Hi, girl. She said, La La Land back tour 2023.
That is true. We want to keep our tour going. We want to keep going across the U.S. And hopefully we'll be able to get some funding to go across the U.S. into all these all these places and bring in Indigenous performers.
And
I think that's
recently me, Landa, and some of our other Indigenous sisters, we got to perform in September in Denver. We brought all these Native performer and artists together, and we did an all Indigenous drag show. And I'll let you go ahead and talk from the host perspective.
Oh, it was great. One of the things that I really love is I really love when I'm talking directly to like an Indigenous audience. And what's more is like having like an all Indigenous show, I think is so I don't know what the right word is. I could say liberating, but I feel liberated already. So what I'd like to say about it is that I think it's important that people recognize that we as Indigenous people are not gone. We're still here. And when you're in certain places, you don't necessarily see all the Indigenous people that are around you, especially when you're in like large urban areas. Even though there's a large Native population, people just don't recognize who Indigenous people are. And that was one of the first things that I experienced when I moved from Oklahoma into San Francisco. And I sort of disappeared on the landscape because it was like, oh, nobody knows what I am here. Back home, everyone saw me and was like, that Indian kid, that Native kid. And going to San Francisco, all of a sudden you're in like this huge melting pot where nobody knows what you are. So it's really easy to completely lose your identity because all of a sudden, you're around nothing. And so I think that by bringing on performances like this, it reiterates that we're still here. Our community is not forgotten. Our community still exists, even though we may be far away from it. And in some cases, we're right in somebody else's tribal nation that people don't even recognize anymore. And so I think it's important to be able to bring that back. It's more than just a land acknowledgement. It's also acknowledgement that we as Two-Spirit people also exist across the Americas as well.
And I was so thankful for that experience because they gave us such a platform to shine. And I loved how everyone was so different. Everybody was so diverse in their performance. And to actually come behind the curtain and see a whole crowd of nothing but Indigenous people, it made me cry. Like I was so, like, I've never seen that. I've never got to experience that. And there was people from all over, from coast to coast, that flew in to come see us. And that was just so amazing. And like, yeah, if y'all ever get to experience that, hopefully we get to do this again. Hopefully come to a town near you. I actually got to host an Indigenous show here in Tulsa, in Oklahoma, and I had a lot of people show up for that too. And they were like, "It is so humbling to see an all Indigenous cast." He's like, "We love drag," there's like, but to actually see an Indigenous cast and to see what y'all bring, it's humbling, and y'all's classy about it. And I was like, "Oh, well, see me after the show."
You know what's really funny about that is that when I first started drag back in the 80s, in Oklahoma City, there were other Native drag queens there. The thing about it is that they just sort of blended in with the other drag queens. So a lot of times you didn't even know that they were Native. You would have to like search them out and everything. And so there was that. And I remember as I was growing up, I didn't have a drag mother. It was me and my best friends. Me and my best friends are the ones that we got together, and we were sort of like our own little family and everything. And if we had a mother, if we were to say that we had a mother, Andrew, down in Texas, and she came up to do shows, and she just befriended us orphan girls, I guess, us orphan Native girls. And she loved us, and so we were just really. But then she was always trying to talk us into getting breast augmentation, like that. We were like, "Oh, that's too far."
Back up. I'm not ready. I'm not ready. Well, when I was going through my first stages too, I was kind of like, oh my gosh, there was like fish. You need to just go ahead and transition. I was like, what? Like, I was terrified because even growing up, I was terrified of drag queens, and just so like, yeah, I got thrown into it and it just spiraled, and I was like, okay, here we are. Like, stage is here to stay. Like,
well, yeah.
How did Landa Lakes come to be?
Well, Landa Lakes came to be because early on, when I first started drag, my name was Autumn Westbrook, and I started in Oklahoma City at an underage club called the Rec Room. And the only way that I could really get into some of the much larger clubs, the really happening club in Oklahoma City at the time was called Angles. And Angles was sort of like the club everybody wanted to be in. And so the way that I could sneak in is by doing drag. But mainly I went to Saddle Trans. That's where most of the Native girls at the time used to go. So I would easily sneak into there, and I would go in with the drag queens, and I would like slip around the corner. But the terrible thing about the corner is, like, when you slip around the corner, you went right into like the urinals. But then you'd pop up over by the stage. So I was like, woo! I made it in.
I've made it.
And but the name Landa Lakes I eventually took on because I wanted to make fun of the mascot, the Indian mascot on the Landa Lakes butter. I wanted to make fun of it. And it's funny too, because I did it, and then after I did it, all of a sudden everybody kept giving me these Landa Lakes products.
Maybe she's getting a phone call. Her broom might have hit her antenna. Are you back? You're back, girl. You froze a little bit.
You're back.
I think you're back. Hello?
Yes, I think so.
Okay, you're back now. We're lagging.
I don't know if I broke up or you broke up.
I saw some lag. I don't know. You're back now, though.
Okay.
But you were saying the Landa Lakes. Everybody started giving you products.
Yeah, they started giving me all these products, and I was like, I really don't support Landa. I'm making fun of the mascot. Please stop buying these.
Did you see? I don't know if it's true. Did they take her off there finally?
They did. They did take her off. And you know, there's another side to it too. You know, the artist that redesigned her was Native, but I figure it like this. I figure, yeah, he was Native, but he was doing it out of the interest of being a graphic artist for this company. So I really don't take who on the other side are like, oh, they should have kept the mascot. And I'm like, no, it's time, get rid of it. I mean, the thing about it is people often put Native people on as mascots for things to show like it's so American, you know, it's so American grown. And I feel like unless they're giving back to the community, what's the point?
Lady Shook said, girl, Landa's on that res internet.
It is true. I have Chickasaw net. I'm on Chickasaw net.
I was like, okay. I'm like, well, we'll get it. It'll come in. Um, could you share more about the houses you belong to?
Sure. I started the Brush Arbor Girls first, which is the all-native drag troupe, and I started back in 2004. And I had won like the title of Star Search for this very infamous club out here. At the time, it was called Trend Shack, and that's not a great word anymore. So people now refer to that as T Shack Days, and so I won the title for that. I was Miss Star Search 2005, and during that time, I had people coming up to me wanting to be like my drag children. And at first I was very resistant. And then finally I'm like, okay, fine, let's do this. And then I created the House of Glitter. And so the House of Glitter started in 2005. And it was more international. It was like, you know, all different colors. But for the most part, the House of Glitter is overwhelmingly POC. It's primarily people of color that's in the house. And then later on, I went into the ball scene where I'm the West Coast mother of the House of Lauren. And that's fun. And that's the ballroom scene.
Girl, I was a senior 2005. Like,
oh my gosh.
But I was still sneaking into the rec room then. So.
Oh my God. Well, I'm just saying, like, when we first started GIN, Gay Indian Nations in Oklahoma City, that was back in like 1987, I think. And so that's where I got my first title of Miss GIN. So were you even born?
I was a year old.
A year old, right?
This Chickasaw ages well, y'all. I just remember like my senior year, I had went out and then like someone snuck in Miss Gay Oklahoma America's promos into my bag, in my gym bag. And so I had went to the football field and I went to go unzip my thing and those promos went flying out, like it was windy. And I was like, oh, and so like all the football players and everybody started picking that picture up. They're like, what the fuck? Oh, well, excuse me. They were like, what is this? And I'm like, whoop. And so I just walked off the field. I was like, I'm going home. I don't feel well. Like, and so the next day the coaches were like, I don't know who tried to do this. It's like, but don't do that again. I was like, all y'all like, again, to our viewers, if y'all have any questions for Landa, go ahead and type it in the comments and we'll get them answered. Can you share more about the work or mission of Weaving Spirit's Two-Spirit Performance Festival and the Two-Spirit Powwow?
Sure. I'll start with the powwow first because it's the one that came out first. So for years, I sort of, being a part of Bates, Bay Area American Indian Two-Spirits, I sort of wanted to have some kind of little powwow sort of thing. So we did different things up until like I was chairperson, and then I went off as chairperson, and somebody else came on, and Ruth Villasenor said, what should we do this year? And I said, we should do a powwow. And in the past, they always said, we're too small to do it. We're too small to do it. And for the first time, she was like, yeah, that's a great idea. And I'm like, what? Nobody wanted to do it while I was chair. But we did it, and you know, a part of the reason that we did it was actually goes back to Red Earth in Oklahoma City, like years and years back. I remember me and my best friend Russell Big Horse. We went to Red Earth, and when we were there, we got so many comments, snide looks, and shady glances and glares, that we were like, oh wow, we're not really welcome here. You know, this is not the place. This is not the place for us. And we felt somewhat excluded. And we went to powwows all over in Oklahoma. And this was like the largest. This was the largest powwow in Oklahoma, and it was a really big deal. And yet we got all these shady looks, and so we decided, you know, so out here, I was like, I want to have a powwow that's inclusive. I want to have a powwow that will welcome everybody. I don't care if you're gay or straight or lesbian or transgender. I don't care anything about that. I think that everybody should be able to come to the powwow and see Indigenous dancing and culture and be able to be okay with it, you know, and feel welcome. That was our primary point, was finding a place of welcomeness. And so I think that we've accomplished that in our Two-Spirit Powwow. I think that most times when people come, they feel that welcome. And we didn't degendered our categories. So for some people who sometimes feel like they're stuck in a category due to the gender of their birth, it finally gives them an opportunity to break out of it and be able to experience something that they may have always wanted to do. We had a grass dancer come to our powwow that grass danced for the first time because back in their own community, they were only allowed to jingle dress dance because they were born female. And so this person was able to come and finally dance grass dance. And I thought that was a wonderful experience for them. And they've really grown so much since then as well. So I think welcoming powwow as well as gender affirming as well. And as for weaving spirits was something that I wanted to do because, like, quite often I would find myself in like these performance spaces, these festivals and stuff like that. But, you know, you would have like a Native person come out and say, I'd like to do a blessing now, blah, 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 blah. And that was it. That was it. They were gone. No more. They did a prayer and then they were gone.
They just came to eat.
Right? Right? And I'm like, okay, well, I think we should have our own performance festival. That way we can highlight the Indigenous people that are actually out here doing these performances. And so that's what we started doing. We started, we said, okay, let's go ahead and pull people in and let's spotlight our local talent or even national talent. If as we grow bigger, as we get more money, then we can bring in all these people so that people can see the work that Indigenous people are actually doing in performance art. And so that's how Weaving Spirits started. And now we're like in our 3rd year and going into our 4th year. And I'm looking forward to what we're going to bring this next time. And I've been delighted every time we've done it because, you know, Indigenous people are so different to begin with. People always think of us as like, you know, being one culture, but we're not. We're several cultures. And it's always so cool to see like what people are going to bring. And they bring very different things. And you can really tell that some things are more important for people than others. And they bring whatever that is, and they're able to set it on that stage and be like the main focus. And I think that's very important. So I was almost tempted, like when we were doing it, was like, we should invite a white person to do a prayer.
Let's mix it up a little.
Right? Start off our show. But then I was like, no, we can't do that. We need to honor the Ohlone people. We need to honor the original people of San Francisco. So I was like,
Kuma Oakland says, aunties, will you have booths to rent at the powwow?
There are, or at least there were. So if you have not gotten your vendor registration form in, you better do it right away, because I think that we're full, if I'm not correct. Unless you're a nonprofit, I think that I think that we're full.
And like, this powwow has grown to be a big deal now. Like, I've gotten to experience this twice. Once when I was Miss International, and then I got to be head dancer for them, and what an honor. But it just keeps getting bigger and bigger, and COVID happened, but I feel like y'all, it didn't really take too much of effect on y'all's dancers. I feel like you still had the participation there, and like y'all got to go live during the COVID, and I still watched, and still beautiful. Y'all have so many different people from all over that come and visit and share their dances, and it's just a beautiful thing. If y'all ever get a chance to experience this powwow, it's always the first weekend in February, right?
Yeah, it's February 4th this year, and what's really incredible this year is actually we're actually having a dancer come from Oklahoma, who's currently running for Miss Indian World, but she She identified herself as a two-spirit person while she was reigning as Miss Chickasaw Nation, and that's a first. That's a first because my tribe is extremely conservative, and so I thought it was incredible that that she was Faithlyn was able to become Miss Chickasaw and be open about being two-spirit, and so now she's running for Miss Indian World, and I think that's fantastic. And so she's going to be one of our head dancers at our powwow on February 4th. And so I think it's amazing.
I got to stomp dance for them, and like my experience, it was like back to back. It was like we went to grand entry, and then it was like right into my special, and then like I had to do my dance. And so funny thing, I was like running to get out of my, because I had 3 different costume changes. And so I went for my first one, and then I went to go change into my shells. Well, I couldn't get my otters out of my braids. So we're sitting there trying to tie my things, and like they tied them on so tight, and they were like, "Girl, we don't have time. We gotta go. We gotta go." So I had to stomp dance in my otters. And so as we're trying to fan the fire, I'm like trying not to step on them, and then Wade's all holding hands. We're having to bend down. I'm like, "Oh my God." And my mom, I was like, "Mom," I was like, "I have to stomp dance." And she's like, "It's fine. They don't know what stomp dance is. It's fine. Just keep going." Like, okay. Like, I look all kind of crazy. But yes, oh, someone asked, when is it and where?
It's February 4th at Fort Mason in San Francisco.
And Fort Mason is beautiful too. You can see Alcatraz and all the bridges. I mean, it is beautiful. It's a little chilly sometimes, but definitely it is an all-day deal. And it's like, if you aren't exhausted, then you did not experience the powwow. Like,
that is true. That is true. It's always exhausting.
I'm telling you that dancing on the concrete too. Oh, my poor feet. And then they were like, "Let's go out." And I'm all like, "Oh, yay, heels." Like, do you have any words for younger two-spirits in the world?
I sort of do in a way. You know, today's world, it's much easier for a lot of people to come out. But I also say that, you know, for some people, living, you know, in the middle of nowhere is really difficult. Still, it's difficult in very rural areas, and so my advice there is to come out when the time is right, when the time is right for you. If it's not right for you, there's no obligation for you to come out as immediate as some people think. I think a lot of times we get so wrapped up in being in like these large cities that we think everybody should be out. And the truth of the matter too is, like, a lot of times people already know. People already know, you know, and so it's just that vocalization of saying, yes, you're correct, more than anything else. So I think it's important that people understand that they have to do what's right for them at that time. Although the world has changed a lot, it's much easier for people to come out. I still think that you have to do what's right for you. And if you're Indigenous, I think it's important that as Indigenous people, you once you are out and everything, show your Indigenousness. Don't be afraid to hide it. Don't think that you have to go and become like an LGBT nightlifer, you know, that, you know, your whole life is the nightlife, and you forget about your culture and everything that you've done in the past. You don't have to. It's just like speaking your tribal language and speaking English. You can do both. You can live in 2 cultures. So when you're LGBT, that's the 3rd culture that you just add into it. So just add that into the mix and just be balanced, because that's what we're always taught from childhood, is that when you walk and you walk in a good way, it is a balanced way.
Awesome. Don't be that unbalanced washing machine. What's the dreamscape that you hope to manifest personally and or professionally?
What is the dreamscape? My dream is to keep things going, pretty much. I want to be able to, as my nibblings, my nieces and nephews grow up, I want them to be able to take whatever roles or responsibilities that I currently have and be able to make it into their own. So that's my dreamscape, is that when I'm done and I'm gone and I'm like, I'm not doing any more of these committees or councils or anything else. I know that it's going to be left in good hands with the generations that follow. So that's what my dreamscape is that my nibblings take the place that I've had. And since there's so many of them, that's a lot of leadership.
Y'all heard it. Landa Lakes is looking for butterballs.
Right. And then the underlining advice is don't undermine me.
Yeah. Auntie has spoken. What else would you like other people to know about you?
Oh, what would I like people to know about me? I would probably say that one of the things that I would like people to know is that even though, I don't know, that's a hard question. It's a really hard question. I guess if somebody came and they met Landa Lakes and they were interested in me as a person, I would want them to know that I'm living the best life that I can, and I really enjoy my life. And that's what I want them to take away, is that I have an enjoyment in my life, so they should enjoy their life. So be true to yourself, and you'll succeed.
Awesome. What is your favorite native food or indigenous dish?
Oh my God! Well, you should already know this. It's for
I
shofa.
know, but
It's for
the children need to know, darling.
It's for shofa. And
if y'all have not had pashofa, oh my
God. And also, for those people who are non-Indigenous, it's probably something you'd have to grow up with, because most people that eat it are like, this is so bland. And I'm like, just put salt, just add salt. Nothing else, just salt. And that's what gives it its flavor. The salt.
That's and it is, I guess it's not for everyone, but I think it's just growing up as Indian kids, whether you were poor or not, but I think it's like even poor, like you appreciate it more. Like growing up now, like I crave all of that stuff. And pashofa is one of them now too. It's like, as soon as it gets a little chilly outside, I have to have me a bowl. Like it's a have to. And now I've even had like a spicy one. I didn't even know there was a spicy one, but.
Well, that's new. That's new. Well, Banaha is good too, but I also really appreciate bean bread a lot. We do a lot of a lot of bean bread. I love bean bread. So that's another one. The only thing with Banaha and even bean bread is sometimes it can be really not the healthiest thing in the world, because a lot of times we'll take hot bacon fat and we'll pour it over it afterwards to give it extra flavor, and for people who aren't familiar with Banaha or even bean bread, it's basically our version of tamales, pretty much. It's sort of our
cute.
Yeah,
they're real cute.
Okay, let me tell you a story really quick about a Banaha story. Okay, so Banaha, you can sometimes wrap it up in corn husk, but sometimes people get very inventive with things. And I remember one of the aunties brought a big jar of Banaha, and everybody was looking at it and they were like, "Oh, why is the water blue?" It was all, they were all in it. And so we were eating the Banaha and everything else. And then she was like, "Yes, I didn't make it in corn husks." She said, "I found it was much easier to make these little pockets." So she made these little cloth pockets, and she put the Banaha in there, and that's how she boiled them. And we were like, "Oh, I guess that was really smart," but we still didn't understand the blue. And so we were like, "Well, where'd you get the fabric? And she was like, oh, this hotel went out of business. And they had all these sheets. And for some reason after that, nobody else was dipping into that banana.
Them grandmas and aunties have ways. I question some of it. Which I actually made great dumplings from scratch the other day. And I was actually humbled. I had to hit up our friend Wade because I was like, I don't know if I'm doing it right, but I actually got the possum grapes and did it the old school way, and they turned out right. And I actually made my dumpling out of the blue corn instead of regular flour. And then like to just top it with like mixed berries too. That's a new thing. I was like, we're going to change it up just a little bit more because I was like, I want some mixed berries. It was so delicious. And my brother, like, I made a big old pot and it was gone. Like, he's like, oh my God. He's like, you made it like grandma. I was like, I know. Like, she should be so proud.
You know, it's funny too because I see a lot of people who will make like their dumplings out of Welch's grape juice. And I always laugh every time because like the people that I mainly see it have primarily been Cherokee. So and they'll roll out their dough and everything and take a knife and slice it into like the little strips.
I seen someone do cookie cutter. I was like, oh. I was like, oh.
I'm like, these Cherokees are fancy.
They are. I'm like,
it's so it tastes like little dough balls.
It tasted all right. It wasn't the same. Like, to me, I finally figured it out too, because like I learned, I did not know you were supposed to pick them until the first freeze. And then also when you do pick them, it's good to freeze them in the freezer because once they do freeze, they get sweeter. Yeah. So I learned, and they came out like just the juice itself. Oh my gosh. Like I could have just drank that like it is, but I was like, oh my gosh.
And I think persimmons are the same way. Have to wait until after the first frost.
Yes. What do you like to do for fun?
What do I like to do for fun? That's a good question too. I just like hanging out with my partner, watching TV, to be honest. And I'm a voracious reader, so I love reading. And one of the authors that I really like, Kim Harrison, just started coming out with like these new books on this series that a while back she said that she had stopped. She was like, this is the last book, this is the final. And then I just recently discovered that she started writing again on the whole series. So of course I had to get all the books, and I have another book coming up in April. I'm like, oh my God. I am like one of those obsessed people now. I have to read all these stories.
I'm trying not to because my grandma, she has like just bookcases everywhere. And like she'd always like give me a book and I'm like, okay, yeah, I'll read it. And I never did. But now as I'm older, I'm starting to read them and I'm like, these are really good books. I'm like, okay. So I'm getting there, girl. Especially because like I don't like watching TV too much anymore because it just gets in my head too much. I'm like, turning into that old Indian lady.
Oh my God, let me reveal something. This is very revealing, but don't repeat it. This is a secret. But when I was growing up, my mother loved reading. She loved reading. But you know, my mother's Caucasian, my father is Chickasaw, and so like almost all the books were like Savage Winter. You know, it was always like this native man holding like this white woman. And I was just like, ew, Mom. Ew, Mom, why?
Savage Winter. Whoa.
Right.
Woo. That's why they're born in September. Also, we have not even mentioned you are the current reigning Miss Montana. Two-Spirit.
I am.
So she attended the Montana Two-Spirit gathering back in August. They were hosting the international gathering. So we had a new pageant for the international and for the Montana Two-Spirit. And Miss Landa was graciously won the title by a landslide.
Well, you know, I usually MC for the talent show and so to say that it was a landslide is something. Well, from the gathering that night, so yeah, I was surprised. All I did was MC. So I was just MCing. So that was something.
Lady Shook said that pageant was rigged.
I know, right?
Lady Shook is coming for your title, girl.
So,
oh, her internet's acting again.
Oh my God.
Okay, you're back.
So
maybe. I don't know. I'm starting to think the internet for the Chickasaws is going in 20-minute intervals. It's every 20 minutes, girl. You start acting. Okay, you're back.
We were forced off our original homeland. Now we're being forced off the internet.
Dang them. Get the foil. Get the foil. Okay, so we're about to get to the closing, but yeah, I wanted to throw that in that you are Miss Montana Two-Spirit. Would you like to tell the dates again for the powwow?
Sure. Our powwow is on February the 4th. Also, if you're interested, we also have a whole week of events starting that Tuesday. We have a talking circle. You have to register for the talking circle. So go to our website, Bates, that's B-A-A, that's BAAITS.org. It's pretty much Bates with an extra A in it. So Bates.org, and you can see our whole week schedule. We have a snag night, which is on Wednesday night. On Thursday, we have a panel, which is with the elders and the youth. And then on Friday, we're going to have an all Indigenous drag show for brunch. And then in the evening, we're going to have a Two-Spirit Film Festival.
Oh, I didn't know about that.
Yes.
Oh.
Yes.
I'll be ready. Got to get my popcorn ready, girl. Got to get somebody on snag night, too. Is there any way we can uplift your work? Is there any way we can donate to your causes or help you get a cheeseburger?
Absolutely. If you really want to donate to something, donate to the powwow. You can go to that Bates website, bates.org, and go to the donation section. And then you can even sponsor a dance. Like if you want to sponsor teens or adults, you can do that. This year, the Bates drum, our Bates Two-Spirit drum, is going to be sponsoring our Tiny Tots. So Tiny Tots is taken care of, but you can easily sponsor the teen or adult categories.
Or if you need a private dance, please sponsor Sage.
Sage will be available. Sage will be available. Sage and Buffalo. I think they're both the single girls.
I will be on the Oakland side. Is there anything you would like to highlight or plug before we go, darling?
Mainly the powwow. Come to the powwow. Enjoy the powwow. If you can't make it, we also have some live streams that are happening. So you can always look us up on YouTube or just go to our Bates website. We have it there too with links. So yeah,
the powwow will be live streamed again this year.
Yeah, we're gonna live stream it again this year, even though it's in person. We're expecting it to actually be rather large this year. So there's gonna be a lot of people.
right. Well, darlings, we have come to the end. We've had a lovely, lovely first Skoden Talks for the 2023 year. I'm so glad to be back. I'm so glad you got to join us, Landa. My lovely, lovely Indigenous sister, Miss Montana Two Spirits. La La Land Back Tour 2023. All right, lady shit. All right. Well, we will catch you next time. Everybody be safe, and we will catch you next month with another Skoden Talks with the Homies.
Bye.